And we're live. Normally, I would say hi and to TikTok live first, but today I synchronize it really, really well. Welcome to the After Hours podcast with me, Dr. Vincent, and my co-host. And now I can say with my friend Steven.
Very nice to be here again. Thank you, Vincent. And yes, definitely friend.
Well, Steven came into the studio today bearing gifts. So I don't know if you recall from our conversation last week and the week before, actually, because we teased it 2 episodes ago in regards to taste and culinary and how we, we being raised and the environment around us while we grew up and the things that we pick up while we travel or live overseas, for example, in different places, different culture, shape up our taste, shape up the way whether we like certain food or dislike and passionately hate certain food. And today, Steven said that he handed me a brown paper bag, and I was like, "Wow, what is it?" And it has 3 different types of varieties of chilies: habanero, bird eye chili, and
just a cayenne.
pepper, which according to him, and I agree, being Indonesian born, I could probably just eat it right off the bag. Anyway, today is a very special episode because this is probably the episode that I would say that I have the least expertise in, because this is something that whilst people study about it, I believe that this is something that you're born with. You can hone it, you can train yourself to be more skilled at it, but ultimately, this is something that, in my opinion, that you are born with. However, that's part of my question to Stephen today. The topic of today, well, take it away, Stephen.
Look, I thought it would be really interesting for us to have a discussion about leadership. And this really came up as I was leaving last week. Vincent was asking me how I keep in touch with all of my previous employees and how I communicate and what it is that I do to make my team successful. And I thought that was an awesome question. And so I suggested, hey, let's talk about leadership. Now, I am quite certain that quite a number of our listeners have already groaned because there are probably 10,000 books that have been written on leadership recently. If you do a search on podcasts, which I happened to do yesterday just for fun, there are hundreds and hundreds of podcasts that you could listen to learn about leadership. So what I wanted to do in this podcast is I really wanted to focus on how leadership impacts your health. And so both from a being led by a leader point of view, but then also, and perhaps I can provide a little bit more information around how it feels to be a leader leading in a particular way and how you get the best out of your team. And a happy team is a productive team, is a active team. So that's really where I wanted to go today.
Well, Stephen, now you're making me a little bit nervous because I feel that you're so much better than me in opening, because I normally ramble. So no, this is the only episode that you get to open. I'm just putting out there. But what you just said was so fascinating because, and already I'm forming like at least 3 questions in my head on top of the first question that I had, whether or not leadership is a skill that you are born with or something that you learn. But even before I ask you this question, I really, this is the thing. The reason why I'm always very interested and intrigued with leadership or being a leader is because it doesn't matter whether you are a president and prime minister, a CEO of a company, a team leader, team captain. At the very essence of us living, you're leading yourself. So don't think about leadership as something that is so organizational.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be a team. It doesn't have to be something that is so grand. At its very core, you are leading yourself. That's the reason why the expression is like leading a healthy lifestyle or leading a bad lifestyle, things like that, because you make conscious decisions and choices every day that lead you to certain stage in your lives. And that's the reason why fundamentally I do believe that the style of your leadership, the accountability, the responsibility, that the way that you lead yourself has a direct impact to your health and well-being.
I don't think I could have said that any differently or any better. Uh, I think the number of textbooks that have been written about leadership and health is actually quite a low number. Uh,
Oh, wow.
as far as my research has led me to believe, it's a lot of it is about activities and how you drive people to do their best. And I 100% agree that that is a big part of leadership. But I also agree with you that you can't be a good leader unless you are also leading yourself and driving yourself. Now, I really believe that writing lists and planning and being prepared is super important. But there are lots of leaders who aren't. There are a lot of leaders.
Well, if I consider myself as a leader, I'm allergic to writing down stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some great examples of people through history who are in the textbooks as some of our greatest leaders who never had a plan. Uh, and I think that it is a personality trait uh, that some people get to be leaders that don't necessarily have any background, or it's an innate skill that they seem to possess.
So this is where I think you answer half of my question in regards to whether a leader was born or
Correct. Yeah.
trained.
Yeah. So I think that innate leadership is very much about courage and the ability to act quickly. In leadership, if you go into a course on leadership, uh, almost every one of them will include a section that talks about making decisions quickly and not being fearful of making the wrong decision. And so, in general, in business, making a decision and making a decision based on the information that you have and making that decision in a quick and efficient way uh, is seen as good leadership. Now, even if that decision ends up being wrong, it's easy to defend, I guess, because you make that decision with the information that you have. But there are a lot of people, I think, who uh, work that way just naturally. They get information in, they process it quickly, and then they make a decision and they move on. And some of those people fall into leadership roles. Actually, a lot of those people are entrepreneurs who tend to move very quickly. But also, some of those people, unfortunately, they don't think about the health of themselves. They drive themselves too hard, rejecting other people's help, or they drive their teams so hard and have so much of an expectation out of those teams that they miss that the team is not performing as well as they could
They're
if the
too
leadership.
result oriented rather than the process, because it
Yeah,
has to be a little bit of a
exactly.
balance. Because I I as someone who I think I think and act quite quickly, because I always believe that not making a decision is also a decision.
Mm,
So I always believe that given the information at the time, I always want to form a decision whether or not I act upon it or sort of kind of consider it. I want to have a stand when it comes to certain things at any given point of time. But at the same time, I have also been told that, I should be less of a result oriented person slash leader and enjoy the process too, which I can see the arguments for that, because sometimes I'm so focused on the goal, on the finish line, that I kind of forgot to take in the view, which sometimes can be a bad thing and sometimes can also be a good thing. So what do you think about that?
mhm. Uh, I think that there are pages and pages of textbooks that try and deal with that exact question. Uh, One of the things that I'm very interested in, and one of the ways that I typically manage my teams, is this concept, which I've been using for a very long time, which is all around a style of leadership, which is called situational leadership.
Okay.
And so it's a really simple concept. It came out many years ago. It is, I think, a very good way of leading engineering teams. So if you're a manager at McDonald's, this is probably not the leadership style for you. You should stick with the McDonald's leadership program, which is apparently awesome.
I heard that too. Yeah.
And sorry, I'm mentioning brand names. I shouldn't be mentioning brand.
Well, that's okay. If anyone at McDonald's want to sponsor this podcast, please, it's hello@askdrvincent.com. Go on, Stephen.
Awesome segue. Thank you. So situational leadership is very simple. So the whole concept is around when you are a leader or a manager, and every one of our listeners can do this in their day-to-day life if they choose to. So say I want you to chop an onion for the stew that I'm making.
Okay.
So I'm the cook, you're the helper, and the instruction that I need to give you around chopping that onion, I probably need to say whether it's diced or thinly cut or thickly cut. But the instruction that I need to give you is not all that much instruction. You've probably chopped an onion before. You've seen somebody chop an onion on TV. You know kind of how to chop an onion. You know how to use a knife. And so the outcome from that instruction is going to be pretty close to what I want. Even if I have something slightly different in mind, it's still going to be fine.
Okay.
So that is situational leadership, giving you enough instruction to get the task done in the way that it's a positive outcome.
So immediately, other than McDonald's employees and team, the second thing that comes in mind, the second situation that came in mind for not to do this type of leadership is probably the surgical team. In the middle of a surgery, you should not assume that certain people in that room know certain things.
See, that is a fantastic example. So in a surgery, and we've seen lots of surgeries on TV, so it's a little bit TV surgery.
Yes.
But, all the doctors will probably reject this idea, but in a surgery, you have specialists who have their specialist job. You have nurses who they have a thing that they do that they're in the room to do, and so they have a specific role. Now, as part of situational leadership, if I asked a nurse to do brain surgery, I would need to give that nurse an enormous amount of instruction and training, watch them very carefully, probably take over at some point. The amount of instruction that you need to give a person who doesn't have all the information that they need or the training that they need to complete that task effectively is enormous compared to me asking you to chop an onion.
That's correct.
So situational leadership is you give the amount of information to get the outcome that you want, and you try not to give too much.
Okay.
So if we go back to the onion, if I said to you, look, I want you to chop the onion, but I want you to dice it. It needs to be 2 millimeter wide. And if you get it wrong, then you're going to have to start again. And here's the knife that you need to use on this chopping board. And can you do it over there so that you don't make the other person cry when you chop the onions? If I give you all of this instruction, I'm micromanaging your outcome.
And it will probably be detrimental to the results.
Will you ever want to chop an onion for me again?
That's true. Yes, that is a very good way of saying it. But the same setting in a different situation, say in the surgery room, in the operating theater, that amount of quote unquote micromanaging structure and guidance are needed for people to do their job to achieve certain results.
But only if they don't have that training and knowledge and understanding.
Yes.
So key to situational leadership is to understand what the skills are within your team, and then to provide those team members with roles, jobs, activities that are within their abilities and within their knowledge.
Okay.
But if you want them to do something that's outside of that knowledge, you need to give them more instruction. And so it's not micromanagement, it's actually coaching.
Great.
And that's the massive difference.
You've answered another question of mine without me asking it, the difference between micromanaging versus guiding. Because, I mean, aside from the general vibe and the tone of your voice and your demeanor, obviously you can tell if your manager's micromanaging you, which is very annoying, versus a manager that coaches and mentors and guides you through things because they understand or they are being cognizant that this is probably the first time you're doing this kind of thing. This is probably the
Exactly.
first experience that you get to apply certain skill set that you have.
Well, also, it may be that your manager doesn't know that this is the first time you've attempted something,
Yes.
or maybe they assume that you know what you're doing. Uh, it's very, very important, critical, in fact, for a leader to communicate with their team, and so that they can get that two-way feedback. I think in a lot of teams these days, people are scared of giving negative feedback. Um, and unfortunately, that sort of rolls into scared of giving positive feedback as well.
Yeah.
And so people who are unsure about the jobs that they're doing or the roles or activities that they're doing,
I think
sometimes they get over.
I think this is because the younger generations and some within my generation, millennials, but younger than me, they all seem to no longer be able to communicate verbally because everything is text based, short form rather than an actual conversation that you have. But before I ramble about that, what I have in mind when prepare for this episode is that I will listen to what you have to say and your insight when it comes to leadership and draw a comparison or comparative parable to help.
Mm.
So from that situational leadership explanation, it actually is very similar to when you are helping someone to be healthier or to lead a healthier lifestyle. So some people would know uh, the difference between macronutrients, complex carbohydrate, and refined sugar. So they only need encouragement or motivation or a little bit of guidance when it comes to how to eat healthier, to move more, to change certain things from their lifestyle. Versus there are people who either they're not interested or that they have never been exposed to this kind of knowledge when it comes to their health and wellness. Those are the people that need a little bit more detail. So instead of just saying increase your fiber intake, you literally need to say that eat more fruit and vegetables, but at the same time increase your hydration level too. Because
Yes.
when you only say that eat a lot of fibers without actually explaining your body needs water to really activate and utilize the fiber,
Mm.
they will end up with constipation.
Yeah, exactly. Or end up eating huge amounts of what they think is fibrous food,
Yes,
which could actually be bad for them. And going back to our discussion about everything in moderation.
that is correct. Okay, take it away again.
Look, I think that leadership and health has some really interesting connotations. Um, I wanted to ask you though, Vincent, do you have a favorite leader, or is there someone that through your career you've thought, oh, this person is a leader? Now, we've got lots of different types of leaders, and we can go down a lot of different tangential paths here because we could talk about leadership in politics, which I'd rather not talk about. Although happy to. We could talk about leadership inside a company to drive a product. Maybe not people, but product leadership, I think, is important. Leadership when it comes to communication, whether you're a communicator who brings people together. Can you think of a leader that makes?
I can think of several, but uh, I'm o- I'm going to elaborate on one. But let me just say Alexander Hamilton.
Mhm.
I think there's a huge, and I read the book, not just watched the musical.
Nice.
I feel that there is a certain amount and balance of finesse when it comes to how Alexander Hamilton perform. Because in my mind, leadership is a performance. Perform his leadership.
Mm.
I do feel that his commitment to the text, to the founding fathers' text, the Constitution,
Yeah.
as well as knowing his place in the way that I don't know for a fact, but from what I can deduce from all the text and everything, he never actually had any desire to surpass Washington at that time. Maybe a little bit later, but I don't think that I don't think that he thinks that he is only able to lead and make differences just from the position of power. I think he understands the influence behind the power itself, which to me is admirable. Number two and number three, a little bit sort of kind of uh, related. Olivia Pope is fictional character,
Okay.
but the creator, which is Shonda Rhimes, she herself said that she modeled Olivia Pope a lot in terms of leadership and leading a business, leading an organization, a lot from her own experience. And the reason why uh, Shonda Rhimes inspired me a lot is because she didn't come from a place of privilege in the way of like Hollywood connection. She really hustled, and one of the things that resonated a lot with me was that she said that dreams are great, dreaming is good and it's important. However, it's the doers that change the world, because everybody can have a what if, I wish, I want to, but until you actually put the pen on paper, because she's a writer, you're not actually producing anything. And I think a lot of us need that wake up call, because my generation and the younger generation, we tend to focus a lot on what could have been, what could be. We focus a lot on one day instead of making it simple and thinking in the day one sort of kind of mindset. And the last one that I'm going to mention is Martha Stewart. I learned English from watching Martha Stewart, so I'm probably biased. But
it worked, though.
It worked. Yeah. And what I really, really liked from her was that, sure, building the empire, building the catering business, coming from the modeling world as well as a trading world into more of like a domestic world. She elevated the role of housekeeping and domestic chores into $1 billion company. There, those are the things that are very, very impressive. But I also think that people should admire and should take inspiration in the rise after the fall, because she did go to prison for insider trading. She was convicted. She went to white collar prison, but regardless prison, and she came out, instead of feeling sorry for herself and and wrote a memoir about her time in prison. She focused her energy and her time into rebuilding not only herself but also the company. And I do think that that takes a lot of courage.
I think so too, and I like some of the words that you used in there, the courage and building or rebuilding in Martha Stewart's case. I also love Alexander Hamilton. I think that in Australia, certainly in our school system, we don't learn quite as much about some of these American presidents. You've got to remember, though, that while we've got some interesting American presidents over the last 20 years or
the current one.
Or the current one, we can't say too much about current politics. Let's avoid that. But there was so much that had to happen to form a country in the US, in the United States.
It's a great experiment.
It's an amazing experiment. Now, Alexander Hamilton, I think that's a great example of somebody who he knew that he was never going to be a Washington. Washington, would lead people into battle, essentially. Alexander Hamilton, I think he knew that the written word was the tool of the day to get things done.
Yes.
And I also find it's fascinating that he wrote so much.
Yes, he contributed the most documents when it comes to the Constitution.
Absolutely. I'm sure he'd be rolling in his grave at the moment. But I'm sorry.
I thought we agreed. I thought we agreed not to, because I am very easily convinced. Don't tease me, please.
But one of the points I wanted to drive in there is that you've mentioned 3 actually very successful leaders. Can you be a great leader but unsuccessful?
No, you cannot, in my mind. Not in the traditional way or influential way anyway, because I do believe that 2 things need to happen for you to influence people, for you to affect change in the world and society. Number 1, you need to be successful, because people don't understand struggle. People don't understand your life story. People don't understand your dream and your hustle, but people understand success. every single story about founders, every single story about great leaders, about people who have done amazing things, start with the success, and they they go back. They go back to the origin story. People don't care about Peter Parker until Peter Parker is Spider-Man. People didn't care about Steve Rogers until Steve Rogers is Captain America.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is just how our brain works. That's just how society works. And number two, that has to happen for you to affect change is that it needs to be long last. It needs to be lasting.
Mm.
You can't just burn bright and then just die because that is a hype. What you want to do is you need to really build a foundation for, I always call it revolution, for my revolution, for example, because uh and then not to sell you things, just to draw a parable, an example is that usually health products has a life cycle of 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
We're talking about things like, I don't know, aloe vera, acai berries, or coconut oil and stuff like that. After that, it will just be like, lukewarm. It's not
Mm.
bright hot anymore. Activated phenolics was created in 2012. It was commercialized in 2016. It has been 10 years, and we're not slowing down. As a matter of fact, we have found and are finding more ways and applications when it comes
Mm.
to utilizing these patented active ingredients. And to me, that's very important because you need that long period of time to actually affect change. You can't just be a one-hit wonder, so to speak. You need to have a wide repertoire when it comes to your what you do, be it science, be it in the commercial world,
Yeah.
be it in politics, be it, I mean, music industry, for example. You have the difference between Rebecca Black, which you probably don't know, but she was
I don't.
so famous with the song Friday.
Yeah.
Yep, one hit wonder. Or you can be legends like Mariah Carey, Cher, the Beatles, something. They created something that spans multi generations that people go back and study, and they want to emulate. So in my mind, unfortunately, I don't think you can be considered a great leader unless you succeed, and that success creates a lasting impact.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Look, I think that the examples that you gave are really pertinent. So having something that you then, as a leader, when you bring it to market, it might be successful. It might be, um, it might have a lukewarm reaction in a particular market, but then skyrocket in a different market that you weren't expecting. I think that these things are situational. Coming back to my situational
I
leadership.
like that word.
But I think you've described yourself now as a leader because you're taking something that is something that you patented a while ago, and you're looking for new markets. You're looking for new ways of growing that. There are a couple of leaders that I really respect and who are Australian here in Sydney. One of them, his name is Bruce Jeffries. He started a few different businesses. He started a business that sells glasses, so eyewear.
Yes.
And the whole focus that he had was that he was sick of sitting on his old $400 a pair glasses and breaking them, having to go back and replace them. He really believed that any pair of glasses that you have, it should have replaceable parts. Uh, yes, you can have multifocals and all of those kinds of things, and they're a bit more expensive. But actually, standard glasses should be fairly cheap, should be accessible, should be available to everybody. And so you might look at Bruce and go, well, Bruce, you're just trying to sell glasses. But actually, he has a whole bunch of other stories behind that as well. So he uses recycled materials. He makes them all in Australia. There are a whole lot of things in there that are more socially aware and socially focused than just trying to be an amazing business. And for me, that's leadership because it's all about, yes, you might be successful and yes, you might be driving a product and that's fantastic. But giving back and listening to the market and then moving on that feedback, I think that's critical.
I wholeheartedly agree, Stephen, because when I said something about foundational, um, it actually, what I meant was what you literally just said in terms of having that intent, having that. I always believe that you need to start with a good heart and intention.
Mm.
It may not be for everyone. It may just be a good heart and intention according to you. For example, Hitler. But fundamentally, a leader, for them to be successful, they need to believe in their own medicine, in their own
Mm.
campaign, in their own idea, so much so that they want other people to believe in it too. And I, for good or for bad, I really do think that this is probably a fundamental requirement or prerequisite for a change to take place. And in a lot of ways, I do feel that a leader should affect change, because otherwise it's just, a status quo.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to a leader if you're just going to stay buoyant and accepting the status quo,
Yeah.
be it
I
in
agree.
health, be it in politics, be it in life, be it in relationship. I do think that to lead is an act, it's a deliberate act to affect change.
Mm. Absolutely. Vincent, I've been watching quite a lot of tennis recently, and the Australian Open has just finished. Uh, I thought it was really interesting comparing how the players who might go 5 hours on court, how they need to refuel, how they need to manage their water intake, their fluid intake, how they spend a bit of time trying to get the crowd excited so they can have a bit of a rest.
By the way, this is like the notes. I was like, where is this? Go on, Stephen.
Got to keep things lively. Come on.
Of course.
And it reminded me as they come off after the set and they get their certain number of minutes break. It reminded me as they're getting fluids into themselves, having gels, etc. It actually reminded me of the Tour de France, which
Okay.
is a kind of a similar thing. You've got
Yes.
people who are going to these great lengths as sports people, and also having to manage their calorie intake, having to manage what it is that they're fueling themselves so that they can, if you're a leader in the Tour de France, there's all this expectation, there's all this whole team that's behind you that's trying to get you to that point. I think tennis is the same. The
You
best
see one person, but it takes a village.
exactly right. So as a leader, and I'm not going to ask you who in that team in tennis is a leader. I think that's actually a really complicated question. But in a group, as a leader emerges, or as there is somebody a leader, what does that leader need to think about to make sure that their team are doing their best?
Before I answer that question, your whole segue and prelude to this particular subtopic in our topic today reminded me of, sometimes when you just look at this one individual, there is nothing remarkable or noteworthy about that person. However, when you remove that person from the team, out of a sudden, the team fails.
Yeah.
Or when you insert this person, out of a sudden, the people around this person starts to achieve better, starts to gel
We could
better.
do a whole podcast on that topic alone. That in business that happens
Yes.
all the time.
And I do think that sometimes it's almost unfair when it comes to the test, the review or performance test that we currently have in terms of the system, HR system, because it fails to recognize this kind of individuals, I think. I'm not sure
No,
whether that's true or not.
I think you're right. I think that one of the main tenets to leadership in business is having enough data to be able to make the right decisions. I mentioned that earlier on, but you can have too much data.
Yes.
So I was in a sales organization a few years ago where there was an expectation from the leader that every salesperson would do 6 meetings a week. Now, there are lots of sales organizations that run like that. But the simple fact is that if I ask somebody to do 6 meetings a week, they're going to do 6 meetings. But are those meetings going to be useful? Are they going to move the business forward? Are they going to be positive for the person? Are they going to be positive for
We
the
all have been stuck in those one of those meetings. So
So it's not all about the measurement,
yes,
but you need visibility of
yes.
what's going on in your team.
And this is what I always try to say, that, uh, regardless of your style or personality, I do think that you need to back yourself up. You need to be the biggest, most cheerful cheerleader for yourself. You need to be the leading role of your own story, regardless whether or not whether other people think about it or not. Because sometimes I do feel that I'm the least successful person, or the least well-known person in the room. However, in my story, I'm the leading person. I'm taking the leading role, and everybody's a supporting role. To answer your question just now, which I try to sort of kind of think while you were, explaining about too much data and how we take things into counting or calculating performance. I I couldn't go past earning respect. I do believe that to be an effective leader, to have a leader that can affect change, to be a leader that can be inspirational, that really drives and motivates your team and other people around you, you need to earn that respect. You need to
Yeah.
earn that title of leadership. It's not something that is just being slapped after your name. It's not the title that comes with your paycheck. I really do believe that it is something that you have to earn. People need to see the value in being led by you.
Absolutely.
And I do think that when people see that value, when you inspire these people, when you earn their respect, they will go above and beyond
Mm,
to make sure that you are successful, to make sure that you get to where you want to take the team to.
mm. Well, as a team, you're all successful.
Yes.
I have a quote for you, and this quote is from a guy by the name of Adam Smith.
Yes.
Now, he was very popular in the late 1700s. So
That's the reason why I didn't know him.
keep that in mind.
Yes.
He says that, and I am paraphrasing just slightly, a great leader shouldn't just want applause or status, but to actually be the kind of person whose character, decisions, and care for others deserve respect for themselves and respect for their team.
Yes.
And that, I think, is one of my favorite quotes around leadership, and really sums up what you were just talking about. Being a leader is not just focusing on yourself, although you need to be able to be that leader and to deliver what a leader needs to deliver. But to be a great leader, you need to think about your team and help them be the best that they can be.
Wow. And some people say that, they were born great or born with greatness. Some people was, pushed into greatness or a position of leadership because of the situation. But both can be true. But what I'm trying to sort of kind of work in my mind is that sometimes there are times where I found myself in a position of leadership, in a position of strength and privilege to lead others or to affect change, not because I've earned it in the traditional way, but perhaps somebody got sick. Like in many, many cases in my career, both academically and professionally, I often actually was the understudy of the main person.
Mm,
But that's a part of being present,
yep.
because just because you're there at the right time, saying the right thing, and you're being thrust onto that position that you probably think that you might not earn, but that's fine, because you can spend the next, I don't know, a week or the next 2 weeks or the next month, making sure that when people talk about your position, they may say that, well, it's just accidental, it's just lucky, but you stay in that position and you affect change and achieve things
Mm.
because you prove that you may not be the first choice, but you deserve that position.
Yeah. Yeah. I think always look for opportunities.
Yes.
I think being curious is key for successful leaders. If you're curious about something, you're going to ask some more questions. You're going to invite some more feedback.
Well, that's the reason why every week, even when we're really, really busy, we make sure that we have an episode because I don't want you guys to replace After Hours as your weekly podcast with any other
No,
podcast.
don't do that.
No. And speaking of our listeners,
Yeah,
I
I
have
think we had
compiled.
listener questions.
Yes, yes. And the first two questions, actually, there weren't just two questions for Stephen, there were a lot, but some of them should not be read.
Pressure.
But two of the main questions that, the topics that people have been asking about you, Stephen, let me just read this for you. The first one: how traveling and living in different countries or cities shape your life and health and
Mm.
your knowledge, basically.
Yeah. Look, I am curious, and that is one of the things I think that I use to great effect. So when I'm visiting another city, regardless of where it is, I'm curious about that city. People will always tell me, "This city is dirty or clean or super safe or super dangerous." Um, I don't often take them 100% at their word because everyone has a perspective. So I'm curious. So when I've traveled to the Philippines, into Manila, it's a really interesting city. But the team that I was traveling there with at the time, they were Singaporean, and they told me how dangerous Manila is. Now, Manila is it's not a safe city. I agree, but I think that their perspective was shaped by all of the private security guards on the corner of almost every street with a shotgun.
With a shotgun.
Yeah, automatic weapons everywhere, huge police presence in places. But for me, as an Australian walking around parts of Manila, I didn't feel unsafe necessarily. I, I wouldn't suggest an individual does that a lot, but
But this is the
it's
thing that
being curious.
but
That is the key.
but this is the thing though, like we'll get to the health and wellness later, but you said about being curious. I think it's not an argument, but it's more of a follow-up question. It's really easy being curious when it comes to traveling for leisure or just visiting.
Mm.
You use the word visiting very casually, but you didn't only visit these places. You didn't only go and be curious there. You actually work there with local team, connecting them with the international team.
And that's very true.
So how again, it's easy being curious if it's just about food and
Mm.
what site to visit in terms of, buildings or culture. But when you actually have to also work, I think that's where it gets difficult and challenging. I wouldn't say difficult, but challenging, right?
It can be very challenging, and culturally challenging is probably where I wanted to talk about in answer to this question. So in Singapore, for example, actually no. Well, let's go to Kuala Lumpur,
Okay.
another one of my favorite cities. The culture there is very different to the culture in Australia, to the culture in Singapore, even the culture in other parts of Asia. So, as well as being curious, you need to listen. Now, it's very clear when you're in a business context if people are no longer interested in whatever you're saying. And if you constantly get people turning off, then you need to listen to what they're saying to you more than what you're saying to them. So listening, understanding the culture, in some cases, just taking a step back and watching. Even if I used to do this all the time, I'd arrive in a new city that I'd never been. I'd sit in the foyer of the hotel and I would just watch. You would see tourists coming and going, but then you'd see business people coming and going and meeting people for the first time. And there is always something.
People watching, I'm telling you, it's a really good hobby.
So, in KL, when you say thank you, you might put your arm to your chest. And in Japan or in Thailand,
You do it wide. You do a bow.
you might do a small bow.
Yeah.
In Japan, a much larger bow.
Yes.
Being culturally aware is not only a way to engage with the locals and to build trust, but also it makes things enormously safer for you. If you look like you're a tourist from Florida taking photos of everything, walking down a back street of Bangkok, you are going to get, mugged. Well, people are going to ask you for the time and then
I
take all of your money.
I choose to ignore the fact that you randomly chose Florida as an example. Let's move on to the second one. You talk a lot about technology, your background in technology, and as an engineer. How I think so. The reason why this question made it to the list was because there are a few questions that sort of kind of try to understand you and what you do when it comes to, on one side, technology and engineer versus you also talk a lot about gardening and cooking. So I guess,
Definitely.
and I want to hear too, like how engineering and technology influence your sort of kind of personal life hobby with cooking and gardening and stuff like that.
Yeah. Let me see if I can wrap this up into something that makes sense to people.
Okay.
So when I am working, say I'm traveling. When I'm traveling, I'm on all the time. And what I mean by that is that I'm working all the time. Working it's in my head. I'm thinking about what I need to do tomorrow. I'm thinking about where I need to be, what I'm going to talk about, maybe a presentation that I'm giving at a conference. I'm focused on that business task. And so when I come home, and I get in late Friday night, and I wake up on Saturday morning, honestly, the last thing that I want to do is talk about or think about work. Now, I have a whole lot of side projects, which is the technologist in me. I can't sort of let them go. But I need some way of disconnecting the technology Stephen from the Stephen who rides a unicycle.
So, okay. I did not have that in this. So, okay.
So doing something different is really the point, right?
So the contrast, you actually that is almost deliberate.
I
That
look for the
contrast.
contrast. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's growing things, and I have a very small garden. Please, nobody think that I've got acres of land. I don't. I live in the
Yeah.
inner west, so it's a 4x2 garden. But it allows me to buy seeds, to put them in the ground, to water them, to look after them, to leave them for a couple of weeks. I'm growing a new chili at the moment, and it's just coming up, which is amazing. And I know that in about a year's time, maybe it'll fruit.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, because there's a bee issue with bees at the moment, and
There is.
this I love gardening too, and I agree with you. It is a way to connect with the roots. I mean, pun intended, but at the same time, it's to disconnect with my phone, with emails.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the bee situation, this is really crazy. This is the first year, the first season that our lime tree did not fruit and produce.
Really? Wow. I was. It's funny you say that. I was so excited to see honeybees in my garden.
Yes.
They were talking to my enormous eggplants,
Yeah.
which are taking over my garden.
And and you plant the eggplant beside what
Zucchini.
zucchini. So yeah, that is tangling situation.
I'm not saying I'm a good gardener.
Well, no, you are a good gardener.
But it is a good way of engaging with nature. I've spoken about doing bushwalking in the past as well, which I really enjoy. There's a lot more time commitment.
Yes.
I love scuba diving, which is an even more of a time commitment.
Wow.
What I'd suggest though is that our listeners, they look for a couple of different things, because when I go away on holidays, for example, I've got all of these opportunities. I can go snorkeling, I can go scuba diving. I don't ride horses, but I could go for a bike ride. All of these things that are the not work things.
Not in this either. So, well, look for things that surprise yourself, right?
That's right. Be curious.
Yeah.
Things that surprise you.
And I have a lot of other questions, but I have to answer this one because we're coming up to our the end of our episode. So, because I've promised him, his name is Matt, to answer this question last week, but obviously we got carried away. So, uh, as a high-stress hospital worker with persistent fatigue despite good sleep and training, what else, can someone look for when it comes to addressing those issues? And what I want to say is that sometimes it's very frustrating because when your normal, regular blood test comes back good, which is a good thing, but at the same time, that can also be very confusing and frustrating because on one hand, the empirical result and statistics show that you're fine and healthy, but you know your body. You know that you're still tired. You're trying to do all the right things, but at the same time, you're not actually reaping the benefits. So I have a takeaway line here. Good numbers don't always mean a well-rested nervous system. So I would suggest probably look deeper into things that your GP or yourself or Google search don't actually suggest because of Google search and AI, they're great, but they're giving you a summary of an aggregated result and data based on what most population or most go through.
Yeah.
So people usually check the hemoglobin when it comes to blood tests, for example, but check the iron status, especially if you are following a certain type of diet, like vegetarian or vegan. The thyroid function, often thyroid function correlates and influence the level of energy and mood swing that you have. And vitamin B12 and folate, although this is actually quite common now. But the two things that I really do think that you need to look into, if you haven't done it before, is your vitamin D status. It's very ironic that we live in a country where we have a lot of sun, too much sun, some would argue, but at the same time, we also have one of the highest per capita of vitamin D deficiency because we are so good with slap thing that all of these sunscreen, if they actually work, block the UV ray that our body needs to synthesize vitamin D.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying go out and get UV radiation. What I'm saying is that check your vitamin D status. And this is one of the examples where supplementation is actually good. Number two, inflammatory markers, because our body is made up of trillions of cells. And sometimes the inflammation that happens in and within our cells haven't actually made it out to the point where it can be detected in terms of your liver function, kidney function, circulatory or digestive function. They are still, in layman term, hiding underneath the surface. Inflammatory marker can actually shows or predict and indicate that your body is going through this inflammation, because when your body is inflamed, it can express this inflammation in terms of tiredness, fatigue, and weakened immune system, even though every other test result shows that everything is perfectly healthy.
Yeah.
So take this to your GP. Hopefully, you can shed more light in terms of understanding what your body is going through. But thank you so much for the question. Thank you for listening. Thank you for investing your time. I really do believe that, and Stephen agrees, this is like a weekly appointment with them.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I'm so glad that you are still supporting our podcast. Next week, we're going to try to come up with something even more interesting when it comes to our life, health, and wellness. But until then, message us, DM us, McDonald's. It's hello at Ask Dr. Vincent. Please do ask questions. The name of the podcast is Ask Dr. Vincent and Stephen.
Yay.
On that note, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great weekend. Bye bye.